Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is episode 6 of Dance Experts. And today I have a professional dancer sitting with me. I'm very, very excited for this conversation because not only is she a beautiful classical dancer, but she's also a coach. So she has both of these kind of expertise coming together in one person, which is going to be really fun for everyone listening. And we're also going to touch on auditions, which I know is something that I don't personally talk about because that hasn't been my journey. But I know that for lots of you, it's something that you're interested in. So we will talk about that today as well. So Naira, thank you so much for agreeing to join me. And would you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction to you and to how you got into dance and to what you're doing now?
Yes, well, hello and hello everyone. I am actually very happy to be here because I love talking about dancers and dancers development and mindset and anything to do with our profession. And yeah, where do I begin? I've been a professional dancer for now almost 16 years. I'm finishing my 15th season with the Dutch National Ballet.
Wow.
And yeah, sometimes I forget. But yeah, it all started, I would say, just from passion and love for movement. And then later I discovered that there is more to that. And then somehow I ended up in a professional ballet school at a very young age. And then I was hooked. So then it was, about finding better schools, better teachers. And then at some point, this is all I wanted to do. And it got me here. It got me to the Dutch National Ballet. I am a second soloist with the Dutch National Ballet. My journey was also not easy, I would say, but I worked hard for it. And now looking back at it, I'm very proud. When you're in it, you don't feel it, but when you have a moment to reflect, that's when you really, that's when you really feel good about your journey. So here I am. A few years ago, I in COVID actually had a little moment where I had you could say it started off as a depression, but some specialists got worried that it could lead to burnout if I didn't stop. So I took a little break. And a year before that, I started my coaching education. So it all kind of really, weaved into at the same time, and maybe because I became aware of things, it could also be, and also at the time, COVID got the best of us, really. So it really helped me, my coaching education and becoming aware of my mindset and everything that maybe I blocked for many years, kind of got me questioning everything that I did and my journey. And then it led me to start coaching dancers. So I became a high performance coach for pre-professionals and professionals. And I'm very happy that I can squeeze that in at the moment alongside my full-time dancing job, and still coach some dancers. Yeah. And at the same time, I learn from every dancer that I work with. I learned so much, and I continue learning about it because I'm in it. So that's really helpful. I almost feel like, oh, I wish I started sooner, but better later than never.
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like everyone who at some point jumps into the coaching world sounds like with 2 feet, like I did. I had that same thought, like, how did I not find this sooner? If I'd known these things before, I might have made different choices. It would have got me his. But as you said, everything, yeah, it's better late than never, and everything kind of unfolds as it should. At least I kind of have that belief now. So thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. I'd like to ask you, so what was it that did allow you to start looking into the world of coaching? Was it that you were looking for answers for yourself? Were you interested in doing it for other people? What was like the initiation of that part?
So around, I think it was my 8th or 9th season, I had another little breakdown where I was going through a terrible divorce in my personal life. Was a bit of a mess, and I started questioning myself and in general psychology of like, what am I doing? Why am I in this place? How can I get out of this place? How can I be better? Maybe that's how it started. And then I started looking into that. And then when I started finding ways for myself, I generally I've always been maybe the kind of person in the company that would try to help and find answers or find solutions for other dancers or for people that I care. Don't want to call myself the mommy, but I do have that instinct of trying to help people. And then when I put 2 and 2 together, I was like, oh, how can I actually, because I enjoy doing that. It gives me a lot of pleasure to find solutions and help dancers especially. And then I started looking at, put 2 and 2 together. I found the word coaching. English is not my first language, so those words came to me later. And then it just, I realized that's a thing, and more I started looking into it for myself. I realized, oh, actually, this is something I would really enjoy doing. And then I found a perfect school for it, and the rest just happened naturally because, and I'm very passionate about it. When you're passionate about something, it's easy.
Yeah. I think so many people's story begins with some kind of pain. That's what I heard from your story too. Is like, but it's the combination of the pain of something. For me, it was like really bad health stuff. And for other people, yeah, it's relationship things or a career that kind of like implodes or something. But it's the combination of that pain with a like curious mentality, which is what I'm hearing you say. Also, within the company, you already had this thing of like, there must be answers somewhere, let me find them, rather than like, let me just sit in this pain. No, I'm going to find a way, which is so amazing. Is that something that you think you have always had, this kind of open curiosity? Is that how you are as a little girl? Is it something that you've cultivated over time?
Yes, for sure. If I think of qualities that a dancer need, curiosity is the biggest. And because it pushes us to learn more, it pushes us to grow eventually, and that's what you need as a dancer. Just healthy curiosity is that's all it is in many ways, in many things, not just within yourself but also within your art and within your dancing. Like, I'm curious what makes this dancer special, rather than comparing yourself or feeling maybe fearful or feeling maybe insecure. Curiosity is what will make you actually be better. So for sure, it's like one of my one of the biggest things I enjoy about coaching is helping dancers become curious.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun. And at least for myself, I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. At least for myself, I've noticed that the times when I feel more curious is exactly what you said, when I'm not as fearful, when I'm not as insecure. It's the moments when I've somehow managed to create some sense of safety, either like physical safety or psychological safety, that allows me to step into curiosity. And I notice now for myself, whenever I'm not being curious about things and I'm like either grumpy about it or I feel like this should just be a different way or something like that, that actually it's because I've gone into some kind of like survival mode, is how I call it. It's a little bit oversimplified, but like this ability to shift into thriving mode and then have this access to the curiosity in different places is something that I look out for it in my own life, and it's what I help clients. So this sounds like there's something similar there for you. How do you like kind of classify what I'm sure that is different for every single dancer that you work with, but what's the kind of process that you take them on? What's the kind of way that you frame it? Because I always find that really interesting.
When I first got my education as a coach, is fantastic because it gave me a lot of structure. Let's say I've already had an idea of what it could look like, but really doing IPAC coaching school it gave me a structure, and I was like, oh great, I can eventually, though maybe they wouldn't like to hear that, but eventually though I did change it a little because I specialized in high performance. So it was I just had to adjust it to the dance world a little. But generally what dancers come to me for, generally, right, if I overlook, it's confidence. And that goes confidence in all aspects of their life, of their choices, of their paths, and self-confidence, of course. And so somehow, and then that just happened naturally, that over the course of our work together, every time we talk, I can see that they are becoming more, first of all, aware, and then more confident. It's just allowing them to process, allowing them to come up with ideas and solutions and themselves. That kind of builds slowly. You can see that they're able to, even just their facial expressions, their posture, everything changes about them, that they can be in charge, because our profession, sadly, in so many ways, no matter if how many years we do it, I'm in it for so many years, there is a lack of sense of autonomy, I find, just because of the way the profession is. A lot of the decisions are made for us. There's not that much that we can influence ourselves. So I would say that that's probably the main work that we do, that I try to help my dancers find that confidence in taking steps, in being, in dancing, in communicating, in their personal lives, just that they can, because ever since we start, that's taken away a little from us. We kind of have to fit in and have to go with the flow, and I would say that that's probably the of course, there are more personal stories and more personal work and personal topics and things that we work with. But generally, I think that's what happens naturally. Yeah. And it really changes then for them everything. And they I don't think they expect it. I think, sometimes they come for something else, but because they gain that confidence, it leads them somewhere else, and it doesn't really matter, but it makes them happy. So,
confidence. I love that so much. And I hope for the people listening, because I know that most of my audience are adult dancers, so not professional. I think there are a few as well, but I think it's really important for us to hear, for everyone to hear, and the dance teachers out there who maybe never went professional in terms of performance, to hear that confidence doesn't come at this moment that you achieve the goal you set yourself. Like, it isn't that moment where you're like, yes, you've been accepted into the company, you can now introduce yourself as a professional dancer, and now all of a sudden you're going to have confidence for the rest of your life, and that's it, and that's the end of the story. So I think it's actually very kind of beautiful to hear the reality of professional dancers, which is that there may be this confidence on stage, and you look at them and you're like, they have everything together, their lives are perfect, and but actually what's happening emotionally on the other side of, or like backstage, or as they leave the theatre, is not always going to be how we imagine it from the outside. So I really thank you for sharing that reality, because I think it can help all of us just to remember that the confidence isn't necessarily going to come with these external goals that we set ourselves, and that it's a different type of work. It's the work that we both do with people that allows them to step into their power in some ways. I guess that's linked to what you said about the autonomy. How has this journey been for you personally? Because I know I'm still on the journey of like leveling up my confidence, and for me it seems never ending.
Oh yeah, same here. So this season, I sadly I was injured due to overload in the previous season, end of previous season. And that led, why that happened. Now that will get back to your question, because I got promoted the season before, and I got to a place where I always wanted to be. And you would think, oh, I should feel like what you said, right? I should feel confident. Okay, now I am where I wanted to be. Well, I found another way to put pressure on myself. Like, it's never enough. You never stop. Even when you get to where you want, you always feel, especially in our world, with perfectionistic world, you set yourself new goals, maybe even subconsciously without realizing.
Yeah.
So then I felt like, oh, okay, where I got now here, now I have to keep up with the standard that I set for myself. Now I have to prove that I am worthy of that promotion that I just got, without even realizing. So I pushed myself a little too far. I should have stopped earlier. So, and it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how all the work that I've done on myself, it can still happen. You can still find yourself in that situation. But of course, then I learned, okay, this is what happened. I wasn't even aware. I was just like, I'm invincible because I am this, I'm that, I can do it. So then I took some time off, and I just got back on stage. Recently, I had a few shows of Swan Lake. It's a ballet that we've danced before. So the aware person that I am now, I would say that's the biggest shift in me as a coach, is my level of self-awareness. And I love that, because my mind is constantly busy with analyzing what's going on. Like, how am I processing what I'm seeing? How am I processing what I'm feeling? And this is also how I create my, I would say my content, is I put my thoughts out, and I know that many dancers can relate to that. And sometimes, it comes out funny, or sometimes it comes out like very vulnerable or very strong. And it's been a journey. So these few shows, also coming back from an injury, also doing a ballet that I've done before, it immediately put me back into my old pattern. So because it's a situation I've been in before, because it's a ballet that I've done many years ago, and I was first cast for a role that kind of was very nerve-wracking, felt like a lot of pressure. Those feelings from the past stayed, because so I'm in this situation, and I'm experiencing everything I experienced back then. And this is what I also try to help dancers with, realizing that we are interpreting and assuming a lot based on the past experiences. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. It's happening. So I try to rewire myself, my brain, and try to play with it and see what works, and see how can I shift that same thought into something more positive. Because so what happens is, a lot of it is negative. A lot of it is negative self-talk. A lot of it is fear and worry and doubt. And I was like, I cannot do this. This is not, and I see it happening at the same time. And I don't want it to happen, because, I want to dance. I want to enjoy. Why am I doing this if I am not getting any joy? If all this fear and worry overweights all the excitement and the pleasure and the fun in this amazing profession, how, all these questions came to, how have I been doing it for so many years? So that's been a little bit the journey. But I must say, for me personally, it's been when going on stage. So I am way better in the studio. I'm very good and very balanced, I would say, in everything I do on daily basis. And then there is a switch. There is a switch that kind of goes on when I go to stage. So that's what I've been finding out recently.
It's so cool to have the tools to do the analysis as it's happening as a coach, and you're literally seeing these patterns. You talked there about shifting from, or just looking at the balance between the kind of negative self-talk, which I mean, you have such a challenging profession at the same time as it's incredibly beautiful, that I know that there is a place for that. It's not like we have to eradicate anything that's helping us improve. Right. But then there was this question of, but where's the part where it gets to be the more joyful and the excitement and this, and how is that balance actually looking? So this is going to bring us on then to talking about a little bit about the emotions of things, because if we're so focused on what things are looking like from the outside, it's like we said, looking at professional dancers and being like, oh, they're doing it, therefore they must be, and then we project some kind of emotion onto that. But of course, human beings can do basically any activity with any of the huge range of emotions that exist for human beings. So the question really, when it comes to emotions, and for me, I'm so curious to hear your perspective, is how much of this kind of emotional world were you aware of when you started as a dancer? How much of it was really about just getting the performance right on stage, and that everything was kind of, you know, as it had to be for the directors and for the audience and for the choreographers, etc. And then what shifted? And then the next question is, and how has that impacted your actual dancing?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
It's a big question.
No, but so I've been thinking a lot about emotions, and also recently, kind of also in the middle of, you know, self-discovery and work with my dancers, I realized that we are very, you know, this resilience that they talk about comes from that emotional block. So it goes hand in hand. Like, we need resilience, because to be in such a tough, competitive and just physically challenging environment, you have to be able to block yourself. And it's not that you have to be, but that just happens naturally. This is what I've been doing. I know many dancers do that, and that's what somehow gets us to the top. It somehow gets us you know, further, because we're able to kind of like suppress certain feelings and emotions. And I thought that was my mental toughness. I thought that was a good thing. I considered it for years, you know. I like pressure. I deal well with pressure. I don't deal with it. That was my
right.
That's what happened, you know. And I realized many dancers do that. We're able to go, if something challenging is coming at us, we're able to go boom, like, okay, I'm just gonna protect myself. I'm not gonna let anything or anyone close. And then my boyfriend brought it to my awareness. He said, do you realize that you can be very emotionally unavailable? Is that? And I was like, what do you mean? And then I realized where it comes from. Of course, it also comes from upbringing, but I think I would say that mainly I got it from my ballet training from such a young age. And then it's just a coping mechanism. Then it's just a way of being, and that also translates into your normal life. So I've been trying to work on that. I've been trying to not let that happen. I've been trying to really embrace my feelings and emotions, and also the way I express them. And it changes also, you know, your dancing, your everyday life, everything. It changes everything, honestly. So that's the one thing I really would recommend dancers in general to check. How are they processing their, first of all, the thought, right? The thought that comes to mind, and how do they process it, and what does it trigger? What feelings come to mind? And then what emotions does that evoke? So I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful to do those things within a coaching environment, I found. And maybe you found that while you were doing your training and just being around other people who are also exploring these avenues, because it can be really scary when you're like, but this is the way that I know how to cope with the things I have to do. When you're like, hey, but listen, like blocking off my emotions is the way that I know it works. I've done it before. I have evidence that this can continue, even though it sucks in other aspects of my life, like my relationship or other things. And I'm laughing because I know this one to myself. But it's a brave choice when you're like, let me see if something else could work better. Because then, of course, you open yourself up to the possibility that it might not work, even if everyone else around you tells you, this is a better way, like you can enjoy it more, you'll feel better. It's still the like letting go, the relinquishing. At least for me, it was really a lot about control, the relinquishing of control of like, but this is the way I've always done it, this is how I know how to manage my body and my emotions, and therefore I just want to stick to it. And then that's why I said at the beginning, like for me, these transitions into the world of coaching, or just the more psychological concepts or embodiment concepts or whatever it is, for me, it's triggered by pain. And I know for a few other people too, because that's the moment when you're like, well, it's not really a choice anymore. I really need to see, is there another way? But I always wonder, are there people out there who will just come by curiosity and invitation to see if there's a different way of doing things? And I think there are, and I see little bits of that in my life in other aspects, but at least for this one, the looking at our emotions and how we relate to our emotions, and do we allow them to exist in our bodies, and all those kinds of things. I know that's a really scary choice. So I'm saying this also so that people who are listening can hear that it's not just that you wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to be emotionally available and it's all going to be fine. It's going to feel great and it's going to be easy and I can do this all by myself. At least that wasn't my experience of it. And I did have a coach because I needed to be supported through that process somewhat. So again, I just really appreciate you for sharing your own journey with that, so that people can hear that it's also, it doesn't make you a weirdo if you choose one path or the other path. There are people who are living right now who are just suppressing their emotions. There are people who are going through the messy middle bit. There are people who've come out on somewhat of the other side and they're like, I have different tools now, but I'm still learning. What have you seen with your clients in that process, and in this really challenging and courageous act of kind of doing the emotional work?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I noticed is that they don't realize that by being this emotionally unavailable or blocking their emotions or suppressing them, not dealing with them or not questioning them, they also block all the beautiful emotions that are out there that you can get. It's not it doesn't go one way, it blocks everything. So so when they start to see, oh wait, but I can also feel this, and then I bring it to their attention and we're like, okay, well, you imagine if you felt this way, or how would you like to feel? And they, to empower them a little to search for that, to empower them a little to allow themselves to feel that, then they're like, oh yeah, of course I want to feel that. Of course I want to experience that, because that's more rewarding than sitting in that, misery, or trying to tell myself it's okay, I'm okay. So I found that, and again, and that goes into them feeling the sense of like autonomy, that they can, that they are in charge, they are the leader of their own life, and whatever stage in their profession they are. So it's really, really beautiful. I love coaching, honestly. Just the reward of seeing their faces light up, or like that a little that hope that it can be different, is really amazing.
I'm really curious because you have to obviously express emotions as a performer that aren't well, they're yours because they're the range of human emotions, but that you're not feeling them necessarily at that moment or in the rehearsal or whatever. I'm so curious how that works for you, and I guess maybe it's different for every single person, but how do you first of all give yourself kind of permission to step into those emotions in the studio or on stage? Is it scary? Was that always easy for you? Is it easier to pretend to have someone else's emotion rather than feeling your own? I'm so curious about that whole process.
Yeah, it's interesting because for many years, because of like how I got to where I am, you know, I always felt the need to please others first because I wanted to earn my position or the casting or the role, or, you know, approved by the choreographer or the teacher or something like that. So for many years, and this is also very, very important for professional dancers, that they're not, that they're, you know, aware that they're not chasing something they don't want to, or something that is not theirs, that they're trying, that they put the first thing, their first goal is to please their teachers, like that. And I did that, and I sadly many dancers do that, you know. It's like you're not dancing for you. When you dance, the moment you dance for you, from you and for you, that's when you connect to your audience the most. That's when the real emotions can come through, because you're allowing yourself to be you. And that can be very difficult for dancers. It can be very difficult. For me personally, as I dance now, it's a very different mindset than when I was much younger. I have to find those emotions in the studio. If I don't do that, I won't be just, you know, ready to jump on stage and be taken by my audience. No, it's a thing that needs a little bit of practice. It's a thing that you need to first feel comfortable in the steps, first learn your steps. Then once you are comfortable in the physical aspect, then you can start playing with, how can I express this without words? And it is a practice thing, you know. I don't believe that it can just like come on stage. Yes, there is an element on stage, the adrenaline element. Once you go on stage and you're performing, there is a nice surprise element in my experience, that sometimes I do on stage things that I don't expect from myself, or there's an extra something, you know. And that's the nice part that I always like to kind of acknowledge, like, oh, today I did that. And I know it's that element of surprise that you only get when you're on stage. But the actual emotions and how you want to express yourself is something that needs to be practiced. Something you can do with the mirror, something you can maybe film yourself, maybe see, because sometimes what you feel on the inside doesn't necessarily express on the outside. So it's good to see what it looks like. If you have a good coach that can help you with that, fantastic. If not, you can also work on that yourself, as long as there is something to express. Because often also in today's modern life, with the development of social media and everything, how we see ballet has taken new heights in terms of like technical development. So it's we sometimes chase the technicality of our dancing, and we don't want that. We still want to be able to express. And if you look at some old recordings and videos of dancers, they were way more expressive. So let's try not to kill that and still bring out emotions to our audience through our dancing. So it's possible, and it's beautiful, really. Like it's another work. It's a different work than the physical aspect, but it's also a work that needs to be put in, for sure.
Yeah. When you were saying about moments on stage when maybe you did something that you didn't expect, or something happened emotionally that was a little bit surprising, are there any performances that you're thinking of in particular that you would feel comfortable to share? Or is there a particular role that you know that you've danced that when you're in that role, there's a bit more magic or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, actually it happens every so often. Once I am very comfortable in the role, once you can really fully trust, once you've done a few shows, probably, once you can really fully trust yourself, that happens is when I go to do extra arm or an extra deep cambre, like an extra something, you know, or so the performance I can think of is we did Raimonda last season, and there is a solo that I really enjoyed, really enjoyed it. At first it was very challenging because it's a lot of coordination, and I was like, how am I ever gonna do this, like 300 arms and heads and in like 2 steps. But in the end it became so comfortable that the play with it was just happening naturally on stage. And even the dancers after, they were like, whoa, you did that cambre today, like how did you? I'm like, I don't know, I wasn't planning to, it just happened. Just happened. But I see this with other dancers too. I see this, like the extra adrenaline, the extra stimulation on stage just makes you do sometimes crazy things, as long as they're good crazy things. It's beautiful. That's probably the best part of dancing, is like those surprises to yourself that you're like, whoa, like how did this happen?
I love that. I'm seeing like a pattern here that I don't know if this is the same thing, but it just occurred to me in life, which is that moment where you've mastered something enough that you then give yourself permission to surrender some of the control. Like that's the step that I never allowed myself to take for, like, I don't know, most of my life. It was like, no, I still need to stay in control, even though I have mastery of this thing, whether it was in teaching and allowing like something spontaneous to happen where the students are really like in control, or whether it's even now in coaching, I have to watch myself as well, like give people space, allow for play, like something. But the old pattern of wanting to control. But if you can get to the, I guess it comes back to confidence again, doesn't it? Which is that once you have a certain level of mastery, allow that to be enough, and then see what magic can come when you just release a little bit and go with the moment. And that was the other beautiful thing that you said, is that, you know, the adrenaline or that moment on stage, or the connection with, like, there are other people here, this is a moment that we're all living together, and surrendering to that, instead of again being like, and therefore I must be in control and do everything perfectly, and that almost creates the opposite effect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is so true. Like the control part of it is a big, and it's not wrong, because we are told, like I go on stage because I am delivering someone's work, you know. Sometimes I feel responsible for what I'm dancing, not so much for myself, but I am the result of someone's work, and it's almost like I put them higher than myself, and I have to remind myself every time I go on stage, what is my goal? I've done the work, they trust me, they put me here, they trust me. I should trust myself now and let go. And now what do I want to achieve on stage? And for me personally is, like you said, I want to be present. I want to be fully in the moment. And those are also the moments that I am able to release stress. If I really switch off and I'm like, no, I am gonna right now fully take everything in this moment, because those moments are gonna be gone. And I don't want to be, I don't want to remember them as those stressful moments. I want to remember them as the most joyous moments.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Are there some parallels here with what you're talking about that might help people in auditions? Because I imagine auditions, especially, I've never, well, actually, that's not true. I've done a classical audition to get into the conservatoire, but I've never done an audition to get into a professional company in ballet. And I'm guessing that those, I mean, they are stressful situations, and this is not a case that you've danced this role and you've, mastered the steps, but is there still a place where there can be a little bit of focus on like the emotions or the musicality, or should it still be like, no, you need to get every step right, that should be priority? Like how can dancers balance those two things?
Auditions are a form of performance for sure. And I also like to, so I work with many dancers currently on auditions, and I also created auditions course for dancers recently, because for me it was a big part of my journey, up until I started auditioning. I realized how tough this was. I realized how hard the industry is, how hard it is to get in. It's just dancing is not enough, So I wanted to support dancers in that journey, because it can really make or break a career. It depending not only on how you audition, but what choices you make. It can lead, in many different ways. And I treat auditions very much like performance when I coach dancers on this topic. It's important to understand that just like when you go on stage at an audition, you need to find that state of flow where you are your best self, which is very difficult because unlike a performance where it's about you are being maybe compared, you are being maybe judged, and you're seeing other dancers, unfamiliar faces in an unfamiliar environment. So there's a lot of different distractions and elements that can hinder performance, and that can be very challenging. Very honestly, I struggled with it myself. Probably about 10% at most of my auditions went good or well. Only 10%. The rest, I was too stressed, to this, couldn't deal with that, didn't have the right punches, so I couldn't perform my best. And I think the best way to approach auditions is to find a way, and that's the work that needs to be done prior, so that you can prepare yourself to what's going to happen, what could go wrong, and still be able to deal with all these struggles, all these challenges that may come with an audition, and find the right mindset to not compare yourself, find the right mindset to deal with rejection for the next audition. Don't let that really kill your confidence. Once at an audition, is very important to express yourself emotionally, because as dancers, we don't have a way to communicate to our potential future directors. We don't have a way to say, hey, this is me, this is who I am, this is it. Our only way to show who we are is through our dancing. So emotions and expressivity is very important at an audition. That's the only way we get to show who we are. And for that to happen, we need to have the right mindset.
Yeah, I think that you are the exact perfect person to have made that course because of the struggles. So I feel like sometimes people have this idea of the people who are the absolute best at auditions and have always been the best at doing auditions should be the people who are teaching. But I don't actually think that's true. I think it's the people who've made the most improvement somewhere are the people who are going to be best at teaching it. So the fact that you shared that, you weren't always super confident going into auditions, and there were times when you're like, oh, these aren't the right pointers or whatever it was, that actually you are the exact perfect person to create that course, because once you've been through that journey, it's so much easier to lead other people through that journey. And I think it's so beautiful when we can realize that there are always many parts to success in something. And I know this can be really difficult, and I talk about this with the dance teachers that I coach, which is the success of your dance school. If we compare this to auditions for a second, the success of your dance school or your classes, or how loyal your students are and things, it's not only about the level of your teaching. It's not, or in this case, it's in auditions, it's not only going to be about the level of your technique, but it's all the other things that you're expressing as a human being, all the ways that you make people drawn to you, or feel a connection with you, all of those things. And those are skills that we don't actually get taught. So it's so wonderful that you're creating this other body of work that dancers can have access to, so that they're not kind of beating themselves up thinking, oh, I just need to get better at my dancing, the technique, and just thinking that one thing eventually is going to lead them to gaining all these other tools, which are in it's almost like a separate toolkit. I don't know if you feel like that, but at least with the teachers, I feel like it's a separate toolkit. You've got your things where you get really amazing at explaining the movements, teaching technique, having your syllabus, all these things. But then there's a whole other level, which is, and I think as dancers who've studied, which we all have if we're teachers or dancers or whatever, when you think about those teachers that made the biggest impact on your dancing and gave you that kind of special even confidence or whatever it was, there was something else about that person that wasn't only about the words that they said to help you with technique. There was something else going on there. So I love that you have this other toolkit to help people in auditions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's also about, after all, let's not forget, it's an art form. And we need to bring inspiration. We need inspiration. We're doing this as a job. I'm doing this every day. I need to motivate myself to be inspired. And the best way to do that is to look outside, is to be a multifaceted person, to try other things, to see the world around you, to learn from the people around you that are also not dancers, to just develop yourself in many ways, and that so that you can bring something new to this art form, so that you can be just richer as a dancer, but also that influences a dancer's confidence majorly, because if we don't put all our focus on this one thing, we can disconnect sometimes, and that helped me majorly. I must say, it helped me with dealing with performance stress, just knowing that, yes, I am a dancer, I'm a professional dancer, and this is what I love. But it gives me a little comfort and peace knowing that it's okay. Like, just telling myself that if tonight doesn't go perfectly, it's okay. I'm still me. I am still deserving. I still, have people that love me. That doesn't change.
Yeah.
And another thought that really helps is like, that's fine. Like, there's a joke that goes around the company that the supermarket is still open. So that takes, like, the world still goes on, even if something goes wrong in this performance. That takes so much pressure off. And I think it's important to be a human, not just for dancers, because we start so early. Our identity is so tied to our dancing and to who we are as a dancer. And sometimes, all we talk about is dance, and especially if we are dating also a dancer, that's like, that's your world, that's it, that's a bubble. And if you leave at your work like we do, we work 11 to 11 on performance days, it's very hard to broaden your vision of life. But it only has benefits. And sometimes some dancers don't trust that. I've coached dancers before who said, oh, I don't think I should date, or I don't think I should date a non-dancers. Just I'm like, why do you think that? So it's natural that thought might come to mind, right? That means I won't be as focused, or that maybe that would mean I will not be fully invested in my dancing. I'll be giving my energy to something or someone else. So it can be scary, but it only has benefits. Honestly, it changes our whole dancing but in a positive way, in a very good way.
Yeah, I'm all for zooming out and getting a bigger context. This also brings me on to the final thing that I wanted to ask you about today, which is, you were just mentioning there, this worry that I think lots of people have, whether it's in dance or in a different career, that's like, all of my energy and focus must go into that. And we need to remember that we are human beings in a biological body for now, and that energy isn't infinite. Like, yes, we can totally work on motivation and creation of more energy and all those things for sure. But what I wanted to ask you about actually is related to injury. You mentioned just now your finger at the beginning of the interview, and that was one of my biggest lessons in life, has just been learning to manage my energy and trust that taking some, because I was like, that's who I am as a person. And so I just had to learn to like expand that out a little bit like this instead of having it like this. And that was the thing that allowed me to become healthier, and that therefore made me a better dancer, not a worse dancer. And it was like so counterintuitive, because I was like, the more that I can just put everything in and never stop and don't rest and surely that's going to mean that I'm better. But then I realized, oh, wait, I'm not a robot. I'm actually a human being that's going to have other things going on. So I'd love to hear from you, because you literally are kind of have been living this recently. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this idea of kind of energy, physical energy, intensity, rest. How do you kind of frame all those things and balance them?
Yeah, well, so I was, it was very different because I was off. I was injured for a good, well, with the summer holidays, I was injured for 9 months. While I was injured, I wasn't fully off. I actually was training. I had hopes that I could come back. And then we found out, after misdiagnosis, found out what was actually happening. But that period, let's say, has disconnected me a little from the reality of the profession because I wasn't performing. So I had a lot of evenings. I can't say I always had weekends, but I would train during the day. Still, it was nothing compared to what I normally do. So diving back into performance mode recently, it came as a shock, and I was preparing myself for it because I've been here before. It's Swan Lake, and it just takes everything out of you. That it is different now. I'm doing different roles. I'm in a different position, and I am a different person. So I have to constantly remind that to myself. I'm not the person I was 4 years ago. It's, everything about it is different. But still, it took me by, it still was a bit of a shock. It was a bit of a change of everything, I had to let go, and letting go can be difficult. I think what you're talking about is a big part of it is control also. And for some, in some weird way, for me, is this need to prove to myself, maybe, by chasing and doing so many things and not prioritizing necessarily rest, is some kind of a, proving to yourself, something that you're proving to yourself. And it can be difficult, but it is so necessary. Because like you said, then the quality of our life and the quality of the things that we actually want to achieve diminishes if we're not giving it full attention. And us, especially women, we're so good at multitasking that we sometimes get carried away. So for me, I think, it's still a challenge. It's still something that I am finding ways to let go, and it comes from here. It comes from being okay. I am enough. I am doing good. Just resting is okay. Just being, just relaxing is okay. But yeah, it's not easy, definitely.
Yeah. So the thing that I've seen that's really beautiful as you've like shared more of your story and talked about your career up till now is that obviously you went through all these shifts when you jumped into coaching and you became a coach and all these other things, and then COVID put some different things into perspective and your longer injury and all these things. But also it sounds like as you're coming to the end of like not the end, but like you've already had such a long career in like as a professional ballet dancer, that I can see there's one part of your mind that's on like what comes next. Can I ask you, do you have already thoughts about this, or are you just like that will come when it comes? I want to just focus on the years that I have left as a like full-time professional dancer. Where's your kind of thought process with all of that?
Well, when I first started, when I decided to go for the coaching education, I was worried, just like every other dancer. I got worried, will it take me away from dancing? Will it maybe show me something that I'm interested in more? Will it pull me away? That was the fear, I would say. And in no way, I mean, I'm so happy I did that, because it only adds to my dancing and finally gives me the peace that I've been searching for in dancing, that I didn't know I was searching for. And I have, we're at the Dutch National, our contract is renegotiated. Let's say in some way it ends at 38. And so that will be another 3 years for me. And I have a goal of really enjoying and dancing this last few years for myself, really, and try to get as much possible, not just joy and peace, but also memories and also experiences and also connections with people, just all the positive things that I was too maybe scared in the past but what I already started, I feel that it's a great base, and I'm very proud of myself, honestly, to do that next to my full-time job. I would love to expand this. I would love to continue, and who knows, not quite sure where it will go, but it's definitely in service of dancers, in the service of the dance world. And yeah, it's I have this experience, I have this and I think my curiosity helps me a lot as well, and I've already started something so good. I think I would like to continue in that same manner.
I love that so much. And also, lucky audiences that are going to get to see you dancing for another 3 years and have that new version of you that's dancing out there and doing it for you, as well as obviously all the other people that you're paying respect to. Thank you so much. This has been such an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that we got to connect. And just for everyone listening, I will make sure to have the link to the audition course in the description if you want to check it out, and also a link to your website in general so people can find out more about your coaching. Thank you, lovely. This has been so wonderful. I'm so grateful that you took the time, and I hope that this has been interesting for professionals and non-professionals. I think it has. We've really touched on lots of different aspects of being a human being, really. So thank you, lovely.
Thank you so much. It's been actually really a lot of fun. I'll probably be taking some notes after, just for myself.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have comments or questions, please leave them down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.